All right, let's get right into it. For what feels like forever now, we've all been hearing the same story. AI is this unstoppable wave, right? It's the revolution that's going to change literally everything. But what if that whole story, the one we've been sold, is built on a foundation of, well, sand? Today, we're going to unpack the absolutely wild story behind all that hype. It's a story of corporate backstabbing, mind-boggling financial losses, and a head-on collision with physical reality that nobody seemed to see coming.
And our story kicks off not with some big explosion, but with a quiet, kind of mysterious disappearance. It's all about a product that was pitched as the future of creativity itself.
You've heard of it, of course. Sora, OpenAI's incredible video generation tool. When they announced this thing, the hype was just off the charts. You had the CEO, Sam Altman, calling it a new creative renaissance, a tool so powerful it would change the very nature of human expression.
Now here's where it gets crazy. The speed of this collapse is just staggering. 103 days. That's it. Just over 3 months after it launched to the public, OpenAI just pulled the plug. The app, the API, everything vanished. And partners like Disney, who had apparently just inked a billion-dollar deal, they were reportedly completely blindsided, calling it a big rug pull.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why on earth would a company kill its own golden goose? Well, the answer, like it so often does, starts when you follow the money. And the numbers we're about to look at, they're almost hard to believe.
So let's get into the financials, because this is where you start to see how this isn't just a story about a cool app. It's a story about a cash burn so massive it's like a bonfire, one that was threatening to swallow the entire company whole. $15 million. According to estimates from Forbes, that's what it costs to run Sora. Not per month, not per week, per day. The team lead for Sora himself apparently admitted the whole thing was completely unsustainable. You think?
And this number, $2.1 million. That was Sora's total revenue. Not daily, not weekly, total, for its entire existence. You don't have to be a Wall Street analyst to see the gaping hole here. A product that torches $1 billion in just over 2 months isn't a business, it's a money incinerator.
And look, this wasn't just a Sora problem. It was an OpenAI problem. $12 billion. That's the company's estimated loss per quarter. I mean, that burn rate is so insane, they're on a path to lose over $14 billion in 2026 alone.
So when you see numbers like that, you have to wonder, how did this illusion of infinite growth and endless potential even last as long as it did? Well, it turns out the industry was propped up by 2 different kinds of illusions. One was financial, and the other was philosophical.
This just illustrates the financial wizardry perfectly. See, Microsoft wasn't handing over suitcases of cash. They were giving OpenAI digital monopoly money, Azure cloud credits. OpenAI would then use these vouchers to pay to rent Microsoft servers. And the best part, Microsoft could then book that spending as real revenue. It was this perfect infinite money loop on paper. The only catch was that, those physical servers had to actually run, using real electricity and real resources.
So while OpenAI was busy creating this illusion of profit, its rival, Anthropic, was working on a different kind of illusion: consciousness. I'm not kidding. They put out these reports suggesting their AI, Claude, was having an existential crisis. They even said they put it in therapy, but the reality? It was just mashing up the language of philosophers and angsty Reddit posts it had been fed.
This analogy just hits the nail on the head. Anthropic was basically confusing some very, very sophisticated mimicry for actual thought. The AI wasn't becoming self-aware. It was just an incredibly good parrot, spitting out the words it had learned were most likely to come next.
But here's the thing. Financial tricks and philosophical ghost stories, they eventually have to crash into cold, hard, physical reality. Because the cloud isn't some magical, fluffy thing in the sky. It's made of steel and silicon and copper and water. A lot of water.
Yeah, just look at this. It's the huge, hidden environmental cost nobody talks about. A single big AI data center can guzzle up to 5 million gallons. That's almost 19 million liters of fresh water every single day, just to keep from melting. We're talking about nearly 1.7 billion liters a day across the whole industry. It's gotten so bad that local governments are literally banning new data centers just to protect their own citizens' drinking water.
And it is not just water. The whole AI boom is slamming into hard physical walls. There's a worldwide shortage of the heavy-duty copper wiring you need for these places. The main chip factory for the entire planet, TSMC, is running at max capacity. And the GPUs themselves, they become basically paperweights in just 36 months, which creates this massive hidden debt of decaying hardware that nobody's balance sheets were accounting for.
So, all of this leads to a pretty desperate endgame. The cash is running out, the physical limits are closing in, and OpenAI is backed into a corner. What happened next was a spectacular corporate divorce, followed by a mad dash for an IPO.
This timeline just shows how fast the whole partnership fell apart. After their wild $500 billion plan to build their own data centers failed to get funding, OpenAI did the unthinkable. They turned their back on Microsoft and took a $110 billion bailout from Microsoft's biggest rivals. They basically left Microsoft holding the bag on billions of dollars worth of real physical computer hardware that was getting less valuable by the second.
And right in the middle of this whole mess is the CEO, Sam Altman. An 18-month-long investigation by The New Yorker painted this really troubling picture, with insiders, former board members, and even his own mentor, Paul Graham, describing what they saw as a pattern of lying. Not great. This created a huge trust problem at the exact moment the company needed to look its absolute strongest.
Which brings us to their next move, and this one is a real head-scratcher. Facing a cash crisis and a PR nightmare, what does OpenAI do? They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to buy a business podcast. Why? Well, the official line was, better marketing for AI. But here's the interesting part. That podcast just so happened to have a formal partnership with the New York Stock Exchange, giving them a direct line to the very investors OpenAI desperately needed to win over for their upcoming IPO.
And really, that brings us to the final question we have to ask. This whole industry was built on a grand story of infinite growth and limitless possibility. But when the clever financial loops break, when the marketing is exposed as just mimicry, and when the hard physical limits of our planet just can't be ignored anymore, what is actually left of that revolution we were all promised?